The Sporting Chance podcast is brought to you by Ashley Clark Falconry, makers of fine, exquisite leather goods. Use the code SportingChance10 for a 10% discount at checkout.
And also, Midnight Falconry, makers of the tightest braided equipment on the market.
Where can you find him?
Anywhere. He's all around us.
Instagram?
He's always with us.
He's with us now.
He's with us right now. Richard Moats is the owner. You can DM him on any social media platform, but his page and his business name is Midnight Falconry. Very good equipment.
And tell him Casey and Aaron sent you.
Yeah.
And also, North Mountain Goshawks. The one and only Seth Roy is breeding true parent-reared goshawks and imprints as well. I know you can't see it right now, but I'm holding one, and it's behaving like a dream come true. Alrighty, welcome everyone to the Sporting Chance podcast. I'm Aaron Kincaid.
And I'm Casey Everett.
And we are joined today by a very special guest, Heather McNemar. Did I say your last name correctly?
Way to go.
Thank you.
Impressive.
So Heather joins us from West by God, Virginia. Is that correct?
That's right.
That's where I was born, actually. My whole family's from West Virginia. Just around the corner from New Jersey.
Yep, right down the street.
All right. So Heather is a falconer, and she is the author of a book, Squirrel Hawking in Appalachia. And she is also the owner of a new falconry store. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So for most of my falconry career, I've been a hardcore squirrel hawker, but about 3 years into my falconry, I realized that squirrel season wasn't long enough. And I was like, I have to find something to do to fill this void between the end of one squirrel season and the beginning of the next. And that's kind of like where my micro falconry journey started. And I started flying kestrels mainly here, and realized pretty quickly that there's not a place that you can get all of the micro equipment that you need. Most people piece their micro equipment from, tons of different suppliers. A lot of suppliers want you to buy 100 of something, and you need one little tiny coast lock, one little tiny swivel. So I did see a void there that could be filled. There's lots of people that offer red tail equipment, and we've got a few red tail things on the website that I really stand behind. But the micro equipment is something that I really stand behind. And I felt like that there was a void that could be filled. So that's kind of where Mountain State Falconry Supply was born. There's a lot of micro equipment out there that I wanted in one place.
Cool.
It's awesome.
That micro stuff is pretty foreign to me. I've never flown a micro bird, but as I understand that the equipment is, or has been, at least prior to you starting your website, it has been challenging to get a hold of. You had to make it yourself.
Yeah. Or
had to have a network of people that can help you out with it. And you sell braided gear for micros?
We do, actually. We have a lot of braided gear from Rich Moats at Midnight Falconry. So
the best.
Wow.
Yeah.
He's actually here with us as we speak, but you can't see him or hear us. He's just here with us.
Yeah, Rich actually he lives like an hour from me. An hour north of me, and he makes some really great micro gear, and does
some say the best.
Yeah,
the tightest.
Yeah. The tightest.
It is pretty tight. It's pretty tight.
It is. I don't know how. Listen, I mean, if anyone knows Richard or has met him, and you see his braids and then the micro stuff, this is a guy that's he's a big, giant guy. He's 6'5", giant, huge hands that are like baseball mitts. I don't know how is he does he fill you in like behind the scenes how he
I
gets
know,
these?
right? Yeah,
How
it's
does
like
he
it's a
do it?
mystery. It's
It
a
really
mystery.
is. But it's the best equipment. I mean, I fly goshawks and some of them, the European ones, the big ones. And during the hawking season, I keep them tethered on a bow perch. And, they're baiting and this and that. And I mean, they last the whole season.
They
Like
do.
no
They do.
fraying, no nothing. It's just
Yeah.
solid equipment. Really
And
good
with,
stuff.
and with the micro gear especially, I mean, it doesn't take anything to get a talon, stuck in a loop. So those tight braids are really important. And, he does some really tight braids, and we stand behind his work.
So do we.
Yeah.
I think it's neat how you're selling stickers and other stuff that falconers love. That stuff, we love stickers. I'm addicted to them.
Me too.
No falconry stores sell them. It's always just individuals that have them.
Yeah, and we're in the process too of trying to gather all of these artisans. A lot of falconers are also artisans, gear makers, and a lot of them aren't, I don't want to say business oriented, but it's just not a priority for them. And we want to feature some of these people, in the business and bring all of their equipment in as well. So that's another goal of ours, to feature some of these people that are making really excellent equipment, but not really selling it on the market.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's great that you're doing that. And micro equipment is hard to come by. I just like with Merlins, and I flow, the only micros I've flown are Merlins, and like trying to find a hood or trying to find little grommets and stuff. And like before Amazon, it was like impossible.
Yeah.
You literally had to go to like Michael's craft store to find like little eyelets and like little small trinkets to like pin. That is crazy,
And it's not even always consistent. You get these things and you go back the next time to buy it, and you think it's the same thing, and it's not going to hold up. And so
exactly.
to find consistent equipment has been really difficult.
Yeah, they need Marshall. The next thing is we need Marshall to come out with a micro GPS. That's
what
are we doing here?
I agree.
Let's go.
Yeah, seriously, Merlin's so popular right now out west with some really high level falconers. And you would think I'm sure they would love to have micro GPS. That'd be awesome. And shoot, a lot of us would probably rather fly micro GPS on accipiters too.
Yeah. Why the big giant thing? If you don't tuck it all the way up by the coverts, then it gets snagged on the tail mount. And I don't really even like leg mount anymore. I just like backpack or tail mount. And the GPS is great, but it's a little bit too
I love
big.
the GPS, but I know so little about it. People are like, "Hey, do you have the blah 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 setting on?" And I'm like, "I don't know, man. I just turn it on, and as long as it's showing the bird is where it should be, that's all I'm looking for."
Yeah, you have to check the settings. I was literally 2-3 hours ago just messing with my settings because I had put my bird out on hack for the first time a little bit late. And the updated app on the Marshall system, you can set so I set it so that it would ping like it goes in like sleep mode and then pings every 10 minutes. So your battery lasts forever. And then I had the RT Turbo, UHF on the other leg, which you ain't losing your bird with that. You'll find them no matter what. But the GPS makes it really nice to just know exactly where they are. And she only went 100 feet from where I dropped her off this morning anyway, so it didn't really matter.
It takes the stress out having GPS. It's such a difference. Even if it's like a red tail, even a Harris hawk, whatever. If you have GPS on them, there's no stress, there's no worry. Just boom, pull the phone out, and you know exactly where.
Yeah. I was talking to some other people, and they think that apprentices shouldn't be allowed to use them. What do you guys
Heather,
think
what
about
do you
that?
think about that?
Well, where I live, it's a little tricky. I live in the holler. You can't see like 100 feet in front of you. So, for me, the GPS, you don't always even see your bird go down. And sometimes when they're on a squirrel, when that red tail's on a squirrel, without it, there have been a few times I would have struggled to find my bird just because, the line of sight here, I'm not hawking in these big fields. So, that's why I didn't use the GPS when I first became a falconer. I was about 3 years in, I started using it, but I always had a scout on my bird, and I did have to use it a few times just to find her on game.
Yeah.
I don't know, because I always had GPS. I don't know, man. I feel like the goshawk, I actually didn't really run into situations where I would have lost her as easily as I had red tails. I don't know what. Yeah, that's kind of funny now. I stop and think about it, but I can think about, like, with my apprentice, I said I preferred her to get telemetry. I understood if she couldn't afford it, but if she could afford
Yeah.
it, I wanted her to get it because I didn't want her to lose a bird and then us have to worry about trapping another one in, December.
Sure.
So it was important to me for her to hang on to the same bird. And I remember flying red tails. You'd have a red tail catch a squirrel at the top of a tree. And then I live North Carolina, I live in the Piedmont, North Carolina, and there can be some hilly places. And they'll take off over a hill and they'll, 3 hills away, and they'll go down into a gully and,
Oh yeah.
drag a squirrel under a log or a stump. And if you didn't have the
Yeah.
telemetry on them, you might have some difficulty finding them.
Yeah, and it's not always just carrying, it's they come down and they'll sail to the next holler. They don't always bring it straight down. And
Yeah.
I've lost my bird underneath, by the time I get to her, she's under a log and camo, you can't see her. So
Yeah, when
Tyler,
they're mantled up, a juvenile red tail mantled up in leaves, they're invisible.
yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I flew a bunch of white goshawks for a while. I have one now, but then when I went to the North American, I literally felt incompetent, literally, because I'm walking around in circles in an open patch of woods, and I'm like, I cannot find this bird, and the GPS says it's like 4 feet away from me, and I'm walking around like an idiot, walking around, and the bird's like literally right there, just like crouching. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. But what I was gonna say was Tyler Sladen, he says that and a lot of people, I've heard this from other people as well, that when the bird catches a squirrel on the top of a tree and then sails, it's only considered carrying when they see you and bump again.
Yeah, that's not carrying.
Then it's carrying.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they're looking for
they're not
to
trying to get away from you. They're doing what. Yeah,
exactly.
So before we move on, I do want to say I saw that Heather had the blessing of Matthew Mullenix, who's the kestrel guy for your website and your store.
Yeah.
And so that had to have been pretty cool, right?
That was super cool. Matt's always been a mentor of mine with his books, but it's pretty neat now to see the support that he's given to the Mountain State Falconry project, just because I think, a lot of our values and what we see in equipment that's effective, and what we want to see other falconers become, I think our values are just aligning. So it's really nice to have his support in this.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Really is.
So can you share with us some of your experience going from red tails to micros?
Yeah, it was quite an experience. I think, anybody that's been in the sport long enough, knows that falconry will knock you down, and like shit's going to happen. Bad stuff's going to happen. And, the very, very first kestrel that I flew, I didn't know any better. Like I was transitioning from, we have a really high fox squirrel population here. So I fly female red tails, and like not for the prestige or just to be like, hey, I've got this big female, but we have a huge fox squirrel population, and it's just the bird. It's the right tool for the job. So I didn't, I had Matt's book, but I didn't have like any other help when I got my first kestrel. So I'm like, I'm just going to get the biggest kestrel. I don't care. Like, if it's a hag, I don't care about any of this. And so I just got me a big kestrel, and she ended up being a hag and couldn't even get her entered on Starling. She was like, screw that. I'm just going to eat grasshoppers and stuff. And I'm sure that I didn't even have her dialed in, but so there's been a lot of trial and error and a lot of mistakes made along the way. But the more that I did it, and the more that I reached out to folks like Matt and a lot of other mentors, if the help's out there. If if you seek it, the help is out there. And, I ask people that know about kestrels if I have a kestrel question. I ask people that know about red tails if I have a red tail question. If I've got a dog question, I ask dog people. So I had a lot of help, and finally am getting to the point, honestly, just in the last couple of years, do I feel like I've I've um I've settled into kestrels and ready to, try something new. I'm sure there'll always be a kestrel around, but they're easy to access here, easy to fly now that I know what I'm doing, and just makes sense in the off season.
Hmm. I'll say this: don't seek help for goshawks. You said the kestrel community was nice and helpful. Yeah, don't try and get any help with goshawk.
Oh shoot!
Yeah,
We'll have people.
they'll purposely put you in the wrong direction just to watch
Yeah.
just to watch you squirm.
They'll have you putting tidbits on your eyeballs to feed your goshawk.
Works every time. Just do that. Do it. I'm not even joking either, because I've heard guys that say like, why are you giving people advice? Like, I give people wrong advice on purpose. Like, they need to learn for themselves. I'm like, oh my god, and this is like good falconers. I'm not going to say who. People that every listener would know.
That reminds me of the viewpoint. I forgot to mention this about telemetry. There's the purists who even say you shouldn't fly a red tail or a Harris hawk with telemetry, period, even if you're a master falconer. At what point do you make the cutoff? Like, I'm sure there could have been falconers at one point who thought you shouldn't fly birds with bells. We didn't used to have bells, and
that technology is too unfair. I'm not flying with bells. It's too unsporting to fly with bells.
Exactly.
That's literally what it is, because it's like now we have GPS, and like my sponsor Phil, he buys like these like off-brand. He buys like 30 tail clips from like eBay from like some random country I've never heard from. And they're like 50 cents for these tail clips, and they're like brass, and they like clip on the tail. They don't work right. And then he doesn't get like the newest stuff. He gets like this old school like GPS, like where you have to like piece it together to go hawking. And he's like, no, the fancy. I don't like the. I'm like, yeah. In 20 years, you're going to be saying, yeah, I'm not going to buy that thing. I'm just going to use my GPS because it's like, it's classic. I'm like, dude, just buy whatever the new thing is, because it's only going to help you.
Yeah, I agree.
You can take the sport farther for sure if you're willing to embrace the technology.
I mean, speaking of technology, Aaron, I don't know about you, but I can't stop thinking about that thermal drone at Seth's house, man. Talk about technology. Oh my gosh.
We're pretty ADD, Heather, so bear with us here.
No, but it's just like it's in every hunting endeavor. It's this same conversation comes up, and it's like in the bow hunting community. I'm involved in the bow hunting community. The purists, the trad guys, they think that people that hunt with a recurve, that hunt with a compound bow with sights on it, is like cheating, which it kind of is. I mean, it's just like you just literally put the pin and squeeze, and it's whatever the distance is, but it's. You know what I mean? It's just like technology just keeps increasing. So it's like, when do you draw the line? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know when to draw the line. I just know that it's extremely convenient to have a GPS on my bird. And me personally, I have a little bit of a temper. So if my bird is like screwing off or something, I'll literally just walk back to my truck and just drive away. And I would only do that because I have the GPS on my bird. And I'm just like, you know what? Screw this bird, man. I'm leaving. And I just leave. I'll go to like 7-Eleven and get like a, classic white Monster energy drink. And I'm just sitting in the parking lot, just like talking to myself. And then I'm like, all right, I'll go back and try to, because I know the GPS is going to connect as soon as I pull in the parking lot. So, it just adds like another layer of like security to your bird. So I don't know why people get like so upset over it. It's like, it's not an ego thing. Like, okay, you fly with only bells, that's fine, but eventually something's going to happen. You know what I mean?
I don't feel like it's made me a lazier falconer either. I use it. I use it when I absolutely need it, and I'm listening in the woods. I can't hear very well, so like bells are not. I just can't always keep track of the bird, and I try, but you're just not always going to see the bird. So it helps me.
Yeah, it definitely helps. And I will say it's made me, I'm never lazy in the field. Anyone who's talked with me knows I'm not lazy, but it has made me where like I'm in the cattails, like plowing through it, and like my dogs are out running, and I hear the tinkle of bells, and I'm like, and I don't even care to sit there and try to figure out where she went and listen. I just pull the phone out. Where's this freaking bird? Where's this bird? I'm like, oh, okay, she's over there. So I start pushing towards her that way. Oh, she's over there. You know,
Yeah.
it's like you're playing, you know, and other podcasts have talked about this, like the long wing guys, where like back in the day, you used to put your bird up and everybody would be looking up and waiting and looking and watching and binoculars, and then now they're just staring at their, you know, they're staring at their phone like this, and they're like, okay, flush, like a video game. You're literally like half playing a video game, half in real life, and it's like I do see how that could be, you know, a little bit like it kind of takes like the mystique out of it, where you're kind of like you're staring at a screen and then you're kicking the bush at the right moment, or sending your dog in to flush the, you know, the quail or whatever, and then the bird just smokes it. It's kind of like you're taking a little bit of the finesse out of it.
Sure.
Just constantly knowing your bird is.
I think for me too, though, it's really helped the safety of my bird, and something that like not a lot of people think about, but it's really applicable here with the fox squirrels is, you know, the faster you get to your bird, obviously the better with the fox squirrels, especially. And I can get to my bird in half the time now because I've got it. And with the females that I've flown, a lot of them won't let go. So even if they have a bad grab, they're like, screw it. I'm not letting go of this squirrel. They get their talons on it and they're going to get bit. So for me, it's a safety thing as well.
Yeah, fox squirrels, I talk a lot of crap about goshawks not getting bit and stuff, but if I had it, I would be a little sketched out putting my bird on a fox squirrel, even though I know, you know, we caught like a whole bunch of squirrels last year and she didn't get bit. She got nicked once.
That's awesome.
But like those fox squirrels, like if the bird makes one mistake, like you got problems.
Yeah, totally. And here, I don't know, like 800, 900 grams is normal for a fox squirrel, but I've caught a lot that are like 1,000-gram plus, you know, and it just, they're
insane.
Just dangerous, you know, they're just, and the longer that I've been in the sport, I used to target them. I was like, I'm going to get all the fox squirrels that I can. Like, I think that's so cool. And the first bird that I flew, I like inadvertently turned her into this fox squirrel killing machine because I flew her too light, and she like realized that they were easier to catch. And she just had this attitude. She was a smaller female. She flew at like 12-15, 12-25, but she wouldn't let go. And the first season, like I think she took 26 head and 17 of them were fox squirrels. And she was just always this fox squirrel killing machine. But now, the longer that we've been in the sport, it's like we try to avoid them, but we just have a lot of them. There's just a lot of fox squirrels where I live.
Gotta hunt what you have.
That's right. Yeah,
that's right. And fox squirrels. So for some people, because I'm not necessarily, I know about them from, you know, watching stuff, reading stuff, whatever. But so they're easier to catch because why? Because they're bigger and slower.
Yeah, they're slower. They're slower than a gray squirrel. And my bird, that first bird that I flew, she figured that out real quick. And it was before I realized if I was like even missing a primary that I needed to imp her. I mean, this was like I was green, so I was flying her light, and she was missing like a couple primaries. She needed to be imped, and she could not catch a gray squirrel. And those fox squirrels, you know, she's like, oh, these things are slow. I can catch these. And she figured that out quick.
They'll stand and try to fight, right?
They will. So that's the other thing about them. In the other reason that I fly confident females, like that is, if a bird's confidence is not there, a lot of red tails, they'll refuse fox squirrels entirely because a fox squirrel doesn't bail immediately like a gray squirrel will bail. A lot of times a fox squirrel is going to sit there on a limb and they'll just bark and just like a standoff. So you'll have this hawk and fox squirrel standoff. And a lot of times a bird without the confidence won't even take a shot at it. They've got to be just at the right weight. They have to be super confident. And sometimes it's time of day, like I've had birds that if it's, noon, and even if they're at weight, they will not take a fox squirrel. But right before dark, they're like, okay, this is kicking in. I better do something. But I have to have a bird that will take a fox squirrel. I hate being out in the woods, and we don't have a ton of squirrels like some other places, but that's predominantly what we have. And I hate being out in the woods, and like especially on a bad year, and you hawk and you don't have a slip, and then you finally get the slip and it's a fox squirrel and your bird refuses it. I can't take that. It's just so I got to have those confident birds.
The eastern fox squirrels we have in the South are actually bigger than the west, the Midwestern mountain fox squirrels.
Yeah.
They're huge.
Yeah.
And I've seen one get caught one time, but they're not really in my area. Actually, they're not in my area at all. They're in like the eastern part of the state. So when it starts to get sandy is when you start to see fox squirrels.
Yeah.
But they're no joke. Absolutely no joke. And do the ones up there come in the different colors, or are they like the gray red ones?
They're just pretty much the grayish red. We don't have a lot of variety in the color.
Have you ever seen the pictures of the southeastern fox squirrels?
I don't know if I have or not.
Yeah, they're really cool looking.
Yeah.
But there can be like the gray ones, there can be red ones, there's black ones, there's all types of strange varieties of them.
Yeah.
I'd like to catch one, I think.
I want to catch one. Maybe this year we ought to do it.
Where?
Yeah, I've never caught one.
West Virginia's not that far. Well, me and Aaron are going to West Virginia. Me and Aaron are going to West Virginia this year, aren't we?
Are you?
We're going to do some.
We're planning on going on a bear hunt.
A bear / falconry hunt.
Yeah.
One of our previous guests, Kirk Price, is a very well known houndsman for bears, and he thinks it'd be a good idea. It'd be fun to have us bear hunt, and then
bear hunting's big. Bear hunting's big.
Yeah, there's a ton of bears there. A lot of bears.
Yeah.
Do you run into any bears when you're in the field or no?
Actually, yeah. We have. One time we were flying my first female red tail, and there was a small cub that was treed. I was actually having a really rough day of hunting. We had like hawked, and there was like no slips. It was late in the season, and I'm getting really mad and aggravated, like I do if there's no slips. And I like looked, and it didn't like register what I was seeing because it was like middle of the day, and I'm like, what am I looking at? And I looked over at my hawking buddy, and I was like, is that an owl? And he's like, what? Because like the distance was not registering, and I'm like, I don't even know what I'm looking at. And we get up there, and yeah, it's a cub. So there's a lot of bears here.
I could imagine birds binding to a cub. So sorry, guys, you're on your own.
My bird went over and like looked at it funny. It's like, no, I don't think so. And it ended up coming down and leaving. But yeah.
Was crazy. Mama there or no?
No. And like I'm an idiot. Like I'm like, oh, I want to get closer and I want to see this thing. Like I have no common sense whatsoever. Let me just go up there and see what's going on. And like, it was only after it got down on the ground and left, I was like, boy, I wonder where Mom was. Like, I was like, that wasn't very smart. But never
bears.
Yeah, I run into bears all the time. I was hacking where I was hacking today. I drive back and forth past a spot like every day to go to the gym, and 3-4 times a week I see bears walking around in there all the time. And I was in there hacking, and then the baggie was squealing, the bird is screaming, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, here we go. Something's gonna come in here, and like the cover's like over my head, and we're in there, and this bird's screaming, and the rabbit's squealing, and I'm like, oh my god!
It sounds like fun.
I'm gonna start carrying spray with me though, because I ran into like 3 last year. My dog was in a brush pile with a giant 200-300 pound bear, like in the brush pile, and I'm just, you know what I mean. All it takes is a thing to, instead of running away, just not wanting to run away, and then now stabbing it with my game shears or something, or
Exactly, right?
or like I dream about it, like strangling it, you know, like getting in there, you know. How we all come on, all the guys listening have definitely thought about it.
Oh yeah,
What would I
definitely.
do? I'd spin around, get behind it, I'd strangle it. It could be
Absolutely.
definitely not. I'll definitely get eaten alive, ass first. You know,
Absolutely.
screaming for my life, and I'd be filming it because I just can't help myself. You know,
You know the movie Grizzly Man?
Grizzly Man. Hey there, little fella.
Yeah, we'll make one about you called Grizzly Bitch.
Dude, definitely, dude. Because they're everywhere, man. And you know, and people have been attacked in my area. Like, you know, an old lady got mauled, like I think last year or the year before, taking her trash out with her little dog.
Way to bring the mood down, Casey.
What? No, she lived.
Dog lived. Good.
Yeah, she lived. She was maimed for life, but she lived.
Oh, great.
No, I'm just kidding. I don't know what happened. I think she lived.
Heather, as a fellow West Virginian, I can ask you this question.
Okay.
Have you ever run into any inbreds out in the mountains?
You know, on that same note, on that same note, I was wondering because a lot of guys, like you're in that area, and Aaron a little bit. And we had Eric on, right?
Yeah.
Aaron?
Speaking of inbreds, yeah, Eric was on.
No. I was saying, like, have you ever ran into like a still? You know, like a moonshine still? Is that
I've never run into a moonshine still. No.
Is that not a thing? Like all the
no, it is, but they're not hiding them in the mountains. They're in their shed in their backyard.
Oh, okay. Not like the old days where they're like, you'll get shot, you know, coming near the still. With my still. Yeah.
No, that's not like a huge thing. Most of where I hunt is, you know, farms that like we have permission and stuff. I mean, sometimes you'll run into a few crazy people, but yeah, it's not. No inbreds.
You ever have any? I was making a joke out of it, but have you had any crazy run-ins? They don't have to be inbred. I mean, we don't know. Maybe they are. Maybe they aren't.
Could have been inbred. You never know.
We are. I will say this. One of the things I was kind of brought up with really old school, keep to yourself falconers, like lay low. Really, a lot of people didn't even know that I was a falconer until a couple years ago. And just really, since I've started the business, have I even posted anything, you know, on social media or anything like that. But so we kind of like lay low, but sometimes you'll still run into people. Like, and I was brought up like someone's like driving by and you've got your bird, like I turn away and I hide my bird. And it's not because I'm doing something illegal. I'm totally legal, but like I just want to hawk. I don't really want to sit around and talk to people and give them this educational program. But a couple years ago,
I'm right there with you.
I was flying a Passage Sharpie, and she'd grabbed a starling, and there was these railroad tracks, and I was walking up to trade her off, to get her and trade her off, and I had my back turned, and my hawking buddy was with me. Thank God. Now I carry with me when I hawk. Now I just do. But these two meth heads came up over the railroad track, and I'm a back to the railroad track. And my hawking buddy was like, he was standing a ways away, and they didn't see him at first. And they looked up over the railroad track, and he said, the second that they saw you, they like ducked back down and like scooched over to get closer. And here they come up over the railroad track. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I was not carrying that day. I didn't have a thing. And that was like one of those sobering moments, because I realized if he hadn't been with me that day, like he's a big guy, and they saw him and turned around and left. But like, man, those types of run-ins, you know, I'm small, I'm a woman, I worry about those things now. And until that happened, I don't know if I just thought I was invincible, or it never crossed my mind. But yeah, some of those run-ins can be a little scary.
That is scary. I was just going to say, you should have just called out Midnight Falconry, and then Richard Moats just like appears, like
I'll be there in an hour.
No, he just materializes. He just
He was
materialized.
probably there waiting in the shadows.
Yeah, if your
waiting
hawking
for them
buddy,
to make a mistake.
Yeah, if your hawking buddy ran, then Richard Motes would have just came right in. Just beat the crap out of it. No, that's sketchy though. And I mean,
That's creepy.
I worry about like my safety sometimes. Because I hawk with like homeless people and like and bears and all that kind of stuff. Like, but for a woman and by the way, you're our first female guest. So
Really?
Yes.
I'm
I mean,
honored.
unless somebody else, whatever.
Harrison identifies as female.
Yes, Harrison. I was going to say he sometimes identifies for whatever he feels like weekends.
He's gender fluid.
Harrison's
but Heather, you're our first cis female. How about that?
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, but that has to be something that's got to kind of play on your mind. But now that you carry, because it's America, that's a good thing. So now you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, and I carried for years until my son was born, and it was just one of those things that when he was born, I was like, this is getting to the point where I'm concerned about, unless I carry on my body, which is kind of hard for me to do because I'm smaller and it's hard to conceal. I just always carried on my person, but not on my body. And I just got out of the habit. Yeah, and I just got out of the habit of it because I was like, man, what if I have a kid now that's getting into stuff, and it just kind of went by the wayside, and now I carry again. I wouldn't have it any other way.
You should. What are you carrying, and where are you carrying?
I have that I carry on my body. I've got a Kel-Tec, a 380, just because it's small. That's what I carry on my body, and then I've got a Judge, the 410 Judge that I carry in my truck. Like,
nice,
and it's like my highway gun. Like if I'm driving on, I don't know if you've been to West Virginia, but I-79, it gets kind of crazy, and there's like one of those things that I like having something in the truck with me too. It makes me feel safer.
That's good.
So, yeah.
I bought a 22 that I'm loading with subsonic rounds to carry for while.
Oh my God! You gotta bleep that one out.
I carry for, if you run into something with a coyote or a raccoon or something like that.
In season, of course, obviously.
Yeah.
Yes. Continue.
Yeah, while I'm out hawking, right?
Yeah.
So like I've had birds bind to raccoons, or I've had a raccoon get treed in front of us.
Yeah.
And before the bird could get to it, it would be nice to have something to deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm a big guy, so I might be complacent about being bothered by people. I hawk in places that there's homeless people, and I've never had any issue.
You're also
wood.
You're also a therapist, so you know how to diffuse and
I can talk them out of stabbing me with a rusty hypodermic needle.
Yeah.
So what was going through your head when you drew that rusty hypodermic needle?
Yeah. I'm feeling some tension. How does it make you feel? I just need drugs, man. Just give me some money.
Hey, man, all you had to do was ask.
Yeah. So, but I don't know if Aaron has something else he wants to say, but I want to hear more about the Sharpie.
The Sharpie?
I want to hear you trapped it. I want you training, entering, unless you don't want to.
And was that your only Sharpie?
That's my only Sharpie. And since I flew, I made so many mistakes. Like it was like a total disaster, a total nightmare. And I was like, I'm never doing this again. And now I'm like, this is the bird that I need. It just makes sense for field hawking here, because again, there's not these expanses. I can't fly. I mean, I could, but it's just not something I have a desire to do. Like if I would fly a Merlin or anything that ranges really far, I would spend most of my time chasing down a bird just because of the terrain here. So, something with short bursts of speed that I can, that the action is happening right there is what I need if I want to field hawk a micro here where I live. So the Sharpie, I wasn't even planning on flying. A lot of times I'll find myself in these situations. My hawking buddy is the same way. Like, we don't really have a plan. The longer that we've been in the sport, we're realizing we're more successful when we do. But this Sharpie, we just happened to be pulling in from hawking and from squirrel hawking, and his Sharpie was hanging out, passage Sharpie, and ran and got big old BC trap and threw a pigeon in it and just set it out in front of his truck and hid behind the truck. Like, didn't throw it. Like, it was like just one of those things that was kind of like meant to be. And we were just like, well, I wonder, that's a really small Cooper's hawk, like, what is this? Like, didn't even really register. Let's catch it. We catch anything. It's just one of those things like, hey, we see this passage bird. We're going to trap it.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, we didn't even know that we were going to trap it. And here it comes. Passage Sharpie came down on a full-size homing pigeon, and we caught it and got it off the trap and got up there. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is a Sharpie. That's pretty cool. Let's keep it. So there was zero plan. I was totally unprepared. I'd flown a couple of passage Cooper's hawks, but I didn't really even have the gear, nothing set up. So it was like, hurry up. But it was it had to be a late clutch bird because it was still like laying down to sleep at night. And it was really ideal age, I think, for a passage Sharpie. And if I would have done the process right, I don't think I would have had as much sickness. But basically what happened is it was right on the verge of being too small. A passage Sharpie, you need something that's going to fly like 160 grams plus, or they're going to be really susceptible to sickness. They're just, you're going to spend, with a passage Sharpie, you're going to spend most of your time, caught a couple head of game and now it's sick again. So this bird.
When you say sick, what kind of sick?
So did a few things with this bird. A lot of times it's like Asper, related. A lot of shoot, what was the medicine that I went through? Now I can't remember what it was, but just stress related sickness that was generally breathing issues. So there was a lot of medications that we ended up going through. And what happened with this bird was every time that I would you have to fly a passage Sharpie so low. A lot of times, if you don't do the process right, you have to bring their weight down so much that if they get like below 160 grams, they're going to get sick. So if you don't take the time to run them through, and this was where, I talked earlier about, if I have a kestrel question, I asked Matt. If I have a red tail question, I asked my mentor, Jay. And if you had a Sharpie question, I reach out to Nicole Peretta. And I was in a hurry with this bird. I was like, I just want to kill shit. I want to get this bird manned. And every other bird, it's always been hurry up and man it. And so you can go catch game. And the faster you can get it in the field, the better. And that's what I tried to do until I started talking to Nicole, and then it was too late. Right. I should have taken my time in the first several weeks, bring the bird's weight up and medicate it, run it through this list of medications, preemptively run it through these medications, get it manned down, and then train it and get it in the field and take game. But I was impatient and I just trained it like every other bird that I'd ever flown. And the bird just kept getting sick. So that was my main issue. And then I fed it a freaking mourning dove that hadn't been frozen long enough, and it got frounced. That was like my very, very first experience with that. And I even knew about it. Like, I only feed breast meat that's been frozen from those birds. So like pigeons, if I feed pigeons, it's only the breast meat, and it's been frozen for 3 months. Like, I'm very, 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 specific with those, but it hadn't it hadn't been frozen long enough. And one of the first things that happened with that bird was it got frowns. So got through that. Finally, took some game with it, but every time I would get that bird light enough to where it was responsive, and it just didn't work out. So I'm ready to do it again. I'm ready to go through the process again. And because when I saw those flights, I was like, this is the bird for me. Like I loved watching those flights that you could slip that bird and you're like, that bird's not going to get it. And it would catch on the wing. Just some amazing flights for a small accipiter.
Yeah, it's like mind blowing how fast they are. You're
Yeah.
Like,
what a great learning experience.
It sounds like a really great learning experience, but it's cool that you want to do it again. I want to fly one really.
I want to breed those, and I want to breed them because they're so fragile. It's like not a money making operation. I want to fly them, and I want to be able to have access to them at all times.
Yeah. And I had thought, I'd thought very heavily about pulling an IS. We don't have IS Sharpie take here in West Virginia, so I would have to go out of state. And I thought that was what I was going to do. That was my plan. And then I talked to Nicole quite a bit about it. You know, she knows that I want to fly another Sharpie, and I'm leaning towards a very early trapped passage Sharpie again. I think is the route that I'm going to take, and a female, something that's going to, you know, fly a little heavier and then go through that whole process again.
Yeah, I can't really speak to the details of it, but from what I've heard, it's like with goshawks and stuff, you have to you hack them, and there's this progression. From what I've heard, they like just go from like a downy in like a month. They're like killing stuff, and that's it, like 0 to 100.
Yeah,
and I want to experience that. I've seen a couple flights, and it's so fun. It's not even funny how fun. It's so fun.
Absolutely. Some of the coolest flight I've ever seen. Sharpie, you know. So
I was watching some old videos of my Cooper's Hawk that I sent to Casey, and that was the last Cooper's Hawk I ever saw fly, and I had forgotten how freaking fast they are. And if they're fast, you know, I can't imagine how fast a good Sharpie must be.
Yeah,
it's just incredible.
The human eye can't really understand what it's seeing. For me, I would say that my two experiences was watching a Sharpie, Seth Roy's Sharpie, chase sparrows and do these insane, crazy maneuvers. My eyes like couldn't like see what it was. And then we were actually hawking. This was years ago. We were hawking in a cemetery, and we just doves all over the gravestones, like sunning themselves and stuff. And there was a passage peregrine. It may have been a passage. I don't remember. And it was flying over our head, and just we're beating brush for rabbits, and we're inadvertently flushing these doves, and we stop and we look at the peregrine, and then the peregrine just tucks into a ball. But it was so far away, and it was completely tucked, and it was coming straight at us. Like my eyes couldn't understand what I was seeing because it was coming straight at us at like 150 miles an hour, and then braked up over our, and my eyes never experienced something like that before. And I couldn't, like, it was so incredible how fast it was moving. It blew me away how fast it was moving. Yeah. Those are the two experiences. So I just, you know, it's got to be so fun to fly either of those birds. And either of those birds I've never really flown with any success, you know. So I'd love to experience that.
So is that when you're saying the next micro experience, is that what you would prefer, is a sharp chin?
Yeah. I've thought about flying Cooper's Hawks again.
Easier to find those.
Oh gosh, yeah, easily accessible, and
you could like wave a pigeon out of your window, and a Cooper's Hawk would be attached to it.
But like if you trap you know, the males here, you have to keep them inside. Like we have, and it's such a mess. Like you can't, because it gets so cold here. Like you can't really. It doesn't make sense during hawking season to keep one outside. It's just not really feasible, and it's too big of a mess. I don't mind like manning the first few weeks of having a red tail in the house until you can get it outside. But like as a permanent solution for hawking season, I'm like, yeah, it's not a good fit for here. And I feel like too that the Cooper's hawks are a little more just one type of game oriented. They get like focused on one type of game, and I think that the Sharpie makes a lot more sense for me here where I live and the game that I have.
You did well with a kestrel. I'm sure you could do well with Sharpie.
Yeah. The one thing that I did, want to expand on was that field hawking and be more successful with it. There's two different flying styles, hunting styles. And when I saw that Sharpie flight, I thought, yeah, I'm going to do that again.
This is it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if Cooper's hawks are as interested in killing Sharpies as they are kestrels.
Yeah. I don't think so. I actually didn't have any Cooper's hawk encounters when I was flying the Sharpie, but just this year I had called one of the female kestrels at the end of the hunt, called her to the lure to feed her up because we weren't going to be hawking for a few days. And it's just something that, once a week, I try to call them to the lure. And that's probably just the flying of the red tails for so many years. It's just one of those things. I'm going to call this bird to the lure and feed her up for a few days. And I called her to the lure, and a Cooper's hawk came right over my head and tried to grab her. And she was right in front of me. If a Cooper's hawk wants them, they're going to get them. But yeah, never saw any Cooper's hawks with the Sharpie, but I do with the kestrels.
Cooper's hawks are such bad mofos.
They really are. Isn't that funny though? How it's not like the Cooper's hawks didn't see your Sharpie. Like they had to have seen it.
Right,
you know
exactly.
What I mean? Like,
they were there. I'm hunting the same places.
that thing is too fast. I'm just gonna leave it alone. But the wing beat of a Merlin. I used to tell my friends. I probably told the story, but I used to tell my friends I was in college and I would take them. Like in between classes, I would have my Merlin in my car, and we'd go like to the golf course right across the street. And like some buddies would come with me, and I would say, "I'll bet anybody right now that within 60 seconds a Cooper's hawk is going to appear." And I'm like, "What's a Cooper's hawk?" I'm like, "You'll see." And I would just take my Merlin out, let it go, and literally it'd be like, and it would be chase each other around in like 10 seconds. I'm like, "Come on, man, leave me alone."
Exactly, and that's one of the reasons I don't want to fly a Merlin here. I'm like, the second that I let it go, I feel like it's going to go way too far. It's going to take me too long to get there. And I'm going to get there and there's going to be a transmitter with a leg attached to it and nothing else,
Yeah, I've flown them. I've flown Merlins in tight places and you can do it. It's just when you get a dove that's just cruising over your head like this, they just can't help themselves.
Exactly.
And they'll just leave whatever they're on, or they'll just turn and they'll just try to fly it down for as long as it takes.
Yeah.
And that's when you're going to lose them. But I will say that after they're made, they will come back.
That's unusual.
No, they'll come back.
No, I'm just saying for birds, that's weird.
It is weird, but I've heard like Tiercel peregrines and stuff like that, and Merlins. It's very common for them to come back and look for you, and they'll come back and be like, "Where are you?" But if they caught it, then you don't know if they caught it or not, because now it's like, do I get in my car and I start trying to find this thing, or do I stand here? You know what I mean? I literally drove to my sponsor's house because I didn't have telemetry. I had a transmitter, but I didn't have a receiver. Couldn't afford it. So I left the spot after the bird took off chasing the dove, went to his house 15 minutes, came back. So a half an hour. I came back, pulled in the parking lot. The bird was sitting in the tree that it left to chase the dove. And I just swung the lure and it came down. Yeah. And I'm like, well, why did I even leave? I should have just stayed here. But how do you know when to leave or not?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I either wait or if we had a micro GPS, we'd be able to know what's going on. Marshall, get on that. Let's go.
Maybe Heather can make one.
I think Heather's our only hope at this point.
Yeah. That would max out my mental capacity.
Yeah. But
I had a good idea, Casey.
Yeah.
When we were talking about how insane Cooper's hawks are, in a good way. I say insane in a good way because I like Cooper's hawks. Our friend Tom has an imprint African hawk eagle.
What are you gonna throw the hawk eagle into a Cooper's hawk?
He's he's gonna collect some sperm from that thing, and he ought to do a half hawk eagle, half Cooper's hawks.
Oh, I'd fly the crap out of that. He actually literally just texted me like a half an hour ago. I got to go over this week to help him cope that.
Yeah, that sounds like a really bad idea, though. All jokes aside,
no, it's a very bad idea.
Cooper's hawk, half hawk eagle.
Throw that thing into a Harris hawk. That would be, or a goshawk.
So my sponsor flew a Cooper's hawk, Harris hawk hybrid.
Really?
Yeah.
What was that like?
He said it was strange. It was like it really and truly had like a screw loose on it.
It was inbred.
What it would chase, it was from West Virginia. What it would chase, what it wouldn't chase, there was really no rhyme or reason to it. Just couldn't figure it out. It was, you couldn't imagine two different birds.
Yeah.
Two more different birds. It'd be like a robin and a Cooper's hawk or something.
Yeah. So weird.
Part of me wants to eat that worm. The other part of me wants to grab that face.
That's great. That's great. I kind of want to get into the gear of what you sell at your company, if that's okay.
Oh, you should have got into that about an hour ago, Casey.
Well, hey, listen, we're just going with the flow here. But I noticed because, all right, so this is my pet peeve. And I've gone through all these websites, and I got a bunch of, not a bunch, but I got a few perches that I like, and I've been using them for like the last 10 years. But I noticed, and I commented on your post of those bow perches. They look perfect. They look absolutely perfect. Like the angle of the bow perches, the quality of the way they're made. Like, so, where are you getting your Are you making them yourselves? Do you have like a guy at a mechanic shop that's welding them up? Like, where you get?
Yeah, it's not me. It's not me. I can put it all together.
Okay.
So yeah, the bow perches, that's been a joint effort. It's taken a lot of people for that to come together, and that was a push from Matt. And he's really helped the measurements, everything. If there's a piece of equipment that's worked for somebody for 30 years, why reinvent the wheel?
Right.
So Matt has basically consulted with the bow perch measurements and everything. And my husband he's an engineer and also a fabricator.
So you might actually be making the micro GPS.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So he has all of the wherewithal to construct them. He used to be a welding instructor at a college just down the road as well. Perfect. So we kind of had everything to be able to piece together the bow perch, with Matt's assistance, his guidance, and my husband has assembled them. Our neighbor, who is his friend, has the cutter. Is it a plasma? See,
plasma.
I don't know anything about this stuff. I just know how to like make it come together. But has the plasma cutter. So they designed the base, and they basically fabricated it. And then I said, okay, how are we going to sell this? Like, I use stuff that looks awful in my own falconry, but that's like, I don't care what it looks like. It's functional. But when you have a business now and you need to sell these products, it's like, what am I have to make something that also looks nice. So there's a powder coater just down the road, and I'm like, that would be a good finish. The powder coating, it's durable, it will hold up, and it just looks nice. It just finishes it off. The one thing that we did struggle with the bow perch was like a nice looking perch surface that's functional. You know that Matt uses like a welcome mat that's like cut down and it works. It works great. But, my thought was, can we sell this? It has to work. So my husband, I said, I need this piece. Can you like 3D print this piece that, will keep this bird, will keep the kestrel from getting bumblefoot. It can't be smooth. It's got to be just like this. So he designed the piece that goes on the top of it as well. And the piece that goes on the top actually pops off. We kind of haven't really discussed that on the website yet. So you can wrap an additional substrate over top of it, or you can pop it off and put whatever perch surface you prefer to use. So it'll be, the perch will be functional and, adjustable. You can, do it to fit your needs.
That's awesome. Yeah, because I ordered my perch and like it came like with no substrate or just like the bare perch.
Yeah.
And I looked at the pictures of the substrate that the company offered, and I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah.
It was like this cheap AstroTurf with like these heavy duty zip ties, and I'm like, how's the ring supposed to slide across? Like, this doesn't make any sense. How'd you know? Bleep that out, Courtney. But the shape of the perch was what I wanted. So then it took me like 7 hours to use and I'm a plumber, so I use plumber's putty, not plumber's putty like what you think plumber's putty, but it's plumber's epoxy, like the patch drain lines, and it hardens like a rock. So I would tape this rope on there and wrap it, and then put this putty on it and squeeze it and form it into this smooth thing. And I'm like, well, if I spend $250 on a perch, why do I have to spend another 6 hours making it work? You know what I mean? Come on, bro.
Yeah.
I don't want this piece of crap AstroTurf with zip ties on it that I'm paying money for. You know what I mean?
I get that.
So that's really cool that you guys are really putting a lot of time and effort. Do you only have kestrel and micro perches, or do you have other?
So right now we do. We're trying to. I think that we will expand. There's probably going to be the next iteration will probably be able to fit a Merlin. But for now, I don't like selling things. Everything on the website I have personally used and stand behind. And I know that it won't always be that way, but I like to be able to say this item is proven. So, for now, it's the kestrel perch, but I look for an expansion to Merlin perches.
I think if you made some Harris Hawk perches, you would get a really big influx of business.
Oh yeah.
You should
Popular birds.
make some that are in the shape of little dumpsters.
Yeah.
You can have a compartment inside to store their food.
Yeah.
Just flip it up and
have the neighbor plasma cut Harris Hawker into it. Oh my gosh, people would buy those like crazy.
What's his last name? Tyler. He's the Southeast director for NAFA.
No, I'm not really up to date.
I've talked to him. He's a great guy. I was wondering Heather may know him. Tyler. It's not Tyler Wright. Either way. I shared on Facebook that somebody had made a tooled hawking bag that had Harris Hawks on it, like a tooled leather hawking bag, really pretty, really cool. I shared it on Facebook, and he commented, "Beautiful bag, but based on the species, it looks like it's only good for picking up trash or something like that." But he flies Harris Hawk, so he's in on the joke.
I don't know how many times we have to talk about it, but we're all just joking.
It's just a joke.
It's just a joke.
Get it? It's a joke.
It's a joke. Goodness.
One of my good friends down here just got a Harris Hawk, and I don't talk about the podcast to personal friends of mine just because, it just is awkward for me. And he discovered the podcast through someone else, and he is also getting ready to get his first Harris Hawk. And he was like, "Man, I just started listening to the podcast. And if I knew how much you guys were going to make fun of me for getting a Harris Hawk, I would have never done it." But he's going to fly it he got a dog from Teddy.
Oh, okay. He gets a pet.
Teddy reached out to me and asked me if I had any recommendations for a pup that she had that she needed to place. So I dropped his name, and he picked the pup up. So he's hoping to catch rabbits now, because without the dachshunds, you'll never catch rabbits here.
Yeah.
I mean, you might catch one or two random ones. I'm sure there's going to be North Carolina people who are like, "I caught 7 and I don't have a dachshund."
It's pretty similar up here. It's pretty similar up here.
My understanding is you got one, right, Heather?
I do. I've got a teddy dog right now. I've never hunted with a dog. I grew up I grew up deer hunting.
Nice.
So even falconry was like in my family, my dad's side of the family, there were even the women hunted. My grandma was a deer hunter. It was just like something that we
Oh
did
yeah,
That's awesome.
every
Granny
year. My
getting her a
aunt
deer.
hunted. Oh yeah, and it was like this big competition every year. Did grandma get the biggest buck, you know? So that was like always familiar to me, but it wasn't my style of hunting. So then when I got into falconry, I was like, I didn't like to be quiet and I didn't like to sit still. So by the time I was
Yeah.
in high school, I was like, I'm not deer hunting anymore. But then got into falconry and I was like, I've got we're getting all of these squirrels now and we don't have rabbits. Like, where are these rabbits? Every rabbit that I have caught with a red tail has been accidental. I've caught 3 rabbits in 9 years of falconry. And I'm like, I know they're here, but like I also hate beating brush. I like squirrel hawking. I'm just a squirrel hawker, but now the longer that I'm in it, like we could really minimize some of our risk. We could add some game to the bag if we just, had a dog to hunt with. And I also thought that where I live, I thought there's not every dog's going to range too far and I'm going to be chasing like the bird's going to go with the dog and I'm not going to be able to get there in time. It's going to end up 3 hollers over. And I just didn't think that there was a match here. And then I found out about, dachshunds and I was like, okay, I might be able to do this. So, and Teddy's just, she's just incredible. And, like I get
She's
a
all
lump in
right.
my talking about her, but she's all right. Yeah.
She's all right.
But, like I couldn't do it without her because it's the first time I've even done it. But I'm excited to see what it will to see what it will add to the team this year. It's just something that it's new to me.
You just got the puppy?
Yeah.
I did. Yeah, she's like 7 months old. So we're getting there. This will be, and I have 2 female red tails right now, and then my buddy, my hawking buddy, has a female. One of the females, I'm not sure. We're struggling, and I don't know that I don't know that it's going to work out. Just because I fly the big females, and once they're like, okay, this is, I don't know if she's going to hunt with the dog, but the other one I think will be fine. So
Yeah.
Might have to trap a new bird.
I
yeah,
was just going to say, if you get a bird that's not used to those dogs, they're very enticing to a big red tail that's on weight.
Exactly. Yeah. And I just think as long as I've got one bird that will hawk with the dog, I think, I'll be fine. But those big red tails are hard to come by too. So they're hard to let go. Like, I've just like been programmed. You don't release a big female, because I spent 5 years trapping the one that I have right now that I'm concerned is not going to hunt.
How big?
Dog. She'll probably fly like around 1270, I would say. But she has huge feet. I haven't seen definitely a bigger foot span than like 4 3/4 is 4 1/4 foot span from like the hallux to like the number 1. That's like pretty average. Most red tails, that's their foot span. And I tried not to keep a bird unless that foot span is like 4 3/4 at least, and hers is bigger than that. So
how
I
are
just
you
do that
measuring
because
that?
of the fox squirrels. I do set them down on a piece of paper, and then just mark the ends of those talons, and then measure that. And the only reason that I do that though is because of the fox squirrels. And when they grab that head, the fox squirrel's got a big old head, and I want them to be able to keep a hold of them. So anyway, the bird I have now, a nice female, still not like super nice, but her feet are fantastic. Definitely will be able to keep a hold of the fox squirrels.
I'm after a large female red tail myself this year.
Are you?
Yeah. In addition to my other projects I have going on.
Aaron's literally worse than me.
But the great thing about that is, one, there's always a lot of people who would love to take it from you if you had,
Yeah.
You could hand it off to another falconer, or you could just feed it up and let it go.
Oh yeah.
So you're going to experience firsthand. I almost guarantee. I mean, I know the areas that you're hawking. Obviously, you're not going to find rabbits on a sheer, rock face with laurel
No.
growing up it. But you go to old home sites and farms and hedgerows, and you're gonna see a lot of rabbits.
Yeah, and we do have some decent rabbit spots. I'm really close to Stonewall, Jackson. It's like 6,000 acres of public hunting. I'm really, really fortunate to have that. And there's a lot of places where a lot of these guys that run dogs don't want to like go back that far. Like you actually have to walk pretty far. So I think there'll be some good little hidden spots that we can add some game to the bag this year with rabbits. So I'm excited for something new and to see how it works out.
The dog will definitely help with the squirrel hawking too.
Absolutely,
which is surprising because you don't really think that when you think of dachshund, you don't think of squirrel hawking. But each dog is different. But once you get them in the groove of what's going on and they're looking at the bird and they realize that there's something running around and the bird's chasing it, they get so into it and then they start trying to find it for the bird.
And that's something that I've focused on, knowing that I'm squirrel hawking. So I've focused on that with this dog. And Teddy knew that I was, going to be squirrel hawking. She knew that I was first and foremost a squirrel hawker. So she started her early, and she will already tree squirrels, and she's doing great with that. Almost with the same intensity that she'll chase a rabbit. So it's pretty impressive. I just didn't expect that. I thought, okay, this is going to add a lot of rabbits, but you're right. The squirrel portion of it, they'll go after squirrels.
You'll see more squirrels because they'll nose around inside of holes, at the base of a tree.
Yeah.
And squirrels, if you'll have a squirrel go into the base of a tree, and we've all done it. You reach up there with a stick and try to rattle them out, and you hear the squirrel growling. Squirrel won't come out.
Yeah.
A dachshund sticks their face in there, that squirrel will come out.
Or they'll pull it out by their tail.
Yeah.
Right.
They'll pull it out by their tail
a couple times.
Yeah. All of mine have done that. They'll catch squirrels. If the bird knocks a squirrel out of the tree, the dachshunds will try and catch it, and mine end up catching a few every year that way.
I love it.
They'll also keep the squirrels from coming down, the tree, more so than a person will. You know how we'll run around a tree slapping the trunk to keep the squirrel up it. Yeah, the dachshunds will ring around, and I think they're scarier to the squirrels than we are.
Probably, yeah, I'd imagine. It makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, look at me.
You said earlier you're a small woman. How tall are you?
I'm 4'11". I have a booster seat. I have a booster seat in my truck because it's not like a fancy truck. So I have like a booster seat and big old Chevy, a 3/4 ton truck, and I'm little.
I bet those big red tails look even bigger when you're holding them.
They do.
That's awesome.
They see you holding a kestrel and they're like, "Oh my god, that's the biggest kestrel I've ever seen."
But I hawk like a 300-pound man. So.
Yeah.
The spirit of Richard Moats is with you.
That's right.
just helping your arms push through the brush like from behind, like a ghost, like
the movie Ghost.
Just assisting you wherever you go. Shout out Richard Moats.
He's getting a lot of free shout outs this episode.
Man, I bought a set of gear from him like a year and a half ago, and I just put it on this bird outside. So nice, man. It looks so nice. Just so nice and tight and clean. The colors look so good.
Speaking of gear makers, Ken Hook, you were selling Ken Hook hoods for a while.
Yeah.
I have a long time ago, somebody told me Ken Hook made the best red tail hoods. And so that's all I've used for a long, long time. And then I was, unfortunately, for a while, he was saying he was going to stop. And then I guess he got the bug again, and now he's making them again.
He is making them again. Yeah.
Sounds like you're friends with him. Tell us a little bit about that.
I got hooked up with Ken through my hawking buddy. He was the first one to really start using Ken's hoods. And he's one of those, my hawking partner is one of those guys that just like befriends everyone. He's very, very social. So he's
Do we
like,
know your hawking buddy?
we'll just, his name's Ray. He's in the Squirrel Hawking in Appalachia book. We
Casey
got
doesn't
into
read
this.
books, by the way.
It looks
Ray
like I'm
doesn't
looking
either.
out with.
Look
Ray
at this.
doesn't either.
Do you see
He,
there's pictures in it, Casey?
Ray will
All
say,
right.
hey, read this and tell me what's in it. Read this book and tell me what it's about. And that's my job. But yeah, so I got hooked up with Ken through Ray because he just started calling him on the phone and chatting with him and finding out like what the best hoods were that we needed. And then Ken was really good about sending hoods for us to try and get the fit just right. And now our favorite style is the red-tailed hawk hood that has the back tongue in it.
Mhm.
And it's true, nothing fits like a Ken Hook hood. I've used other hoods on red tails. Red tail hood from Ken Hook just fits, and it lasts too. His hoods last really well. So that's how I got hooked up with Ken through my hawking buddy. And he's just I love Ken. He's great guy.
He's a great guy. He makes great hoods. He used to always donate hoods to our auction. So when he told me he was going to stop making hoods, I don't want to turn people on to him because I think that he did that because so many people in the state supported him and bought hoods from him. And they're also reasonably priced too.
They really are. And, through the years, I now have like a hood collecting obsession, and most of my hoods are Ken Hook hoods. I've got a whole
love
wall.
collecting hoods. You got hoods, Casey?
I got a bunch. Yeah, got a whole bunch.
Yeah.
Love hoods.
I
don't think you can have enough. You definitely need a bunch.
No, you need them. You need all of them. I've gotten Ken to actually make me Cooper's Hawk hoods. He's made Harris Hawk hoods for me, even though you don't need a Harris Hawk hood. You could just put like a dirty sock over their head and you'll be fine.
Just put a stocking on them, like,
In all sincerity, they're earlier when we were talking about dachshunds, I think they are a great bird to get dogs acclimated to hawking because they work so well. Harris Hawks work so well with dogs.
Yeah.
And as far as the hooding goes, what's the point? They'll follow you anywhere you go when they have a crop the size of a softball, so you don't need to worry about hooding them.
Yeah.
And if you do need to hood them in emergency, you could grab your Harris Hawk, stick it under your arm, jam a hood on its head, and it'll still follow you around and hunt with you. They don't care. They don't take it personally. They're like freaking dogs.
They really are, man. They are incredibly cool birds. I mean, I've seen many falconers. The bird misses a slip, it's standing on the ground, and instead of waiting for the bird to get back up like a red tail or a goshawk, they literally just stand over top of it, grab it like a chicken, and just launch it in the air. And it just flies up, takes a perch, and then takes the next slip.
Yeah.
It's
if we did that with our goshawks, they would fly.
They'd be like, they'd be like spazzing out, like having a seizure, like giving you that side eye from the tree. 4 hours later, the thing wouldn't come down. I'd be at 7-Eleven chugging monsters. It's just like it'd be over.
I'd be up there with like 6 pigeons split open, dragging them around on strings.
Cut my wrist trying to get the bird to come down, like blood everywhere. Just would not come down. Yeah, it'd be over the whole hunt.
That is something, the hooding with red tails. I mean, I know a lot of people that don't hood a red tail, and I will always hood a red tail because I hate walking through the woods with one just baiting until I get to where I'm going to hawk. I cannot stand them just baiting off of your glove, and I hood them and then stick them in the giant hood. That's just, I'll always hood a red tail, and I like hooding them for a reset for multiples. I like to hood them, let them rouse, and then throw them back up in the tree after they've reset. There's just, for me, I'll always hood a red tail.
Yeah, it's really nice. It's convenient. Yeah. Any bird, if you can get any bird to hood, it's so convenient for so many reasons. I mean,
Red
I say
tails
it,
accept a hood really well. Goshawks don't
Mhm.
always accept a hood in my experience.
yeah. Kestrels too. I've seen they can be a little tricky sometimes, right? The hood. I don't have a
Yeah,
tremendous amount of
I've had
experience.
I've had a couple that have hooded okay. One of the ones that I have right now will hood decent, and the other does not. You know, but I usually only hood them to do change gear and things like that. So I don't hood a kestrel when I'm out in the field or anything like that.
I don't know why you would
Yeah,
put a kestrel in the field.
yeah, yeah. So it's not something that I focus on like I do with red tails.
Yeah, it sounds like from what you're saying and what you alluded to earlier, you kind of have to kind of walk a little bit to get to your spots.
You do. A lot of our spots are like that. And the other thing is the terrain. So, you've heard me say holler about 100 times, but that's the way. There's just like a lot of valleys, and then you've got hills, and the bird is at a disadvantage if you start at the bottom. So you literally hood the bird, walk all the way up to the top of the hill, and you hawk a ridge. And when the bird goes down, you either got to hood the bird and go back up or continue going down if you're not all the way down. So we do hood the birds a lot and walk up a lot of hills. By the end of the season, I usually lose 10 pounds and I'm fit because there's a lot of hills and a lot of walking to get to our spots.
Yeah, I'm definitely in better shape during hawking season than I am in the summer.
I'm not.
Yeah, which is like
I eat and drink like a pig during the hawking season. It just counteracts any of the hard work I'm doing.
You got too many good dogs. That's why.
Yeah, it's like Willard, but with dogs. Anybody know the movie Willard?
I do not.
Guy with the army of rats at his disposal. I've got an army of dachshunds at my disposal.
I don't know that movie.
Yeah, go watch it, Willard. It's a good one.
I'm not familiar with that. So for the listeners, I just want to clarify: a holler is
Oh yeah.
a holler. Is that
Casey
the same
texted
as,
me and asked me what a holler is.
No, I didn't. Because all the guys out west, when you watch all these hunting shows like me stuff, they all call the drainage down by the drainage, going down the drainage. Is the drainage the same as a holler? Like a valley between two hills?
No, it's yeah, but
yeah, I mean, technically.
Yeah. You ever hear? I said gully earlier. You know what a gully is?
Gully. I don't know.
Yeah. So a holler's the place between two hills, basically.
Yeah.
So a valley, a drainage.
It's smaller than a valley. When I think of valley, I think something huge. What do you think, Heather?
Yeah, and a holler. I mean, a holler can be really small.
So is it called a holler because you go holler? It goes, holler.
Pretty much. I've been told I don't have an accent sometimes.
No, you have a little bit, but like you're calling it a holler, which is not something we would say here where I'm at.
Yeah.
In New Jersey / New York, it's called.
Yeah.
We would say like a crevasse or
a crevasse.
I don't know, like a gully, down a hill. I don't know. I hawk behind Home Depot.
Yeah, the thing that I noticed, I think it's actually West Virginia for hollow, right? Isn't that what it is? It's a hollow.
It is West. Yeah. Yeah.
It's one of those things I'm used to my whole life, so I don't even think about it.
Yeah.
It's just a holler, whatever. Yeah. Something I noticed in Jersey, Casey, and I'm sure you don't realize this. Reeds, like the thick like stalks of grass that grow up. Exactly. Heather, you know what I'm talking about? Like reeds that would grow in grass and in water or swampy areas. Yeah. They call them phragmites. Hey, walk in there. Put your dog into those phragmites and a rabbit will run out.
It's funny, right?
I've never heard it called phragmites. I think of like stalagmites or something. Stalactites.
The phragmites.
Geological.
It's fun. It's fun to talk about that, though.
Yeah.
And then the guys out, we have all this fun vernacular, down south and up north and east, and then the guys out west are just walking on dirt and kicking up rabbits. And with sneakers on.
Heather, how do you're talking about, this insane these insane conditions you're hawking in, not to mention during the winter, it's snowy and icy.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, you've got these dudes out in California wearing shorts and Nikes walking around catching 100 rabbits with no dog.
That's something else. I mean, like, 100 head of game somewhere else does not like equate here. So like a lot of times I'm really, I don't want to say nervous, but like I try not to compare like head count because I know I know that first of all, our numbers of quarry that's not comparable to other places. And then also the difficulty of the terrain. My goal is to take game every time I go out with a bird of prey, take game consistently. If I get something, that's great. And I've achieved what I've set out to do. But there's definitely some things that make it harder here to hawk. And a lot of people don't, there's only around 30 of us in the state. And I think maybe 7 or 8 of us that actually take game consistently. So it's you can hawk here. It's just not well suited for hawking, but you can do it.
Yeah, that's a very important point. Is even within a state, like Southern New Jersey, Casey, you've said it before, has got a completely different hawking situation than Northern New Jersey. Right?
Southern New Jersey, aka out west New Jersey.
Yeah,
California, New Jersey.
And even there might be somebody. There might be somebody who's a couple hours away from you that's got like a couple honey holes that are just anomalies that you don't have access to something like that. And of course they're going to catch more if they have that.
Yeah.
So that's what it's all about, is just getting out there and doing your best and trying your hardest to put game in front of your hawk and catch things consistently.
Yeah, but that sounds nice. But at the end of the day, like some of these guys, man, like I've talked to guys in like Michigan, and like they say if they go to a field and they don't flush 20 rabbits in an hour, they're leaving. They're like, this is a garbage field. I'm not going there again.
Without dogs.
Just walking through the field with their bird on the fist. Yeah, I'm like, dude, you live in like a fantasy land. That's like not real, like at all. And even where I grew up, like there was like no rabbits. Like there's no rabbits. And I moved up to New York. Finally got my inspection, by the way.
Congratulations.
Thank you. She said it was the nicest setup she's ever seen.
She must not have seen many. She might be new to the job.
She's like, it's my only one I saw, but this looks nice. No, she said it was nice. And I actually spruced everything up.
Did she like how your chicken wire wasn't rusty?
Yeah, she did. She liked the chicken wire, and she liked the 2x4, like on a horizontal, like dividing the two goshawks from killing each other. She thought it was great. She loved it.
That's nice.
Yeah, the chicken wire to divide your birds is excellent. They do that in Maryland, from what I hear. People are out of their minds, man. I don't understand. Like this whole thing with whatever.
So Heather, how do you keep your red tails?
Well, when I very first got started, and I didn't know any better, I free lofted, but I live in the woods, and there's squirrels all around my mew. So I tether on my setup. It's kind of like a jump box, but it's like a built-in jump box. I've got basically a little box that they can go in, and then I've got a pole with a ring on it, and then a high perch over top. And most of the time, both of the red tails are just on that high perch, unless it's like really, really, snowy or the wind is blowing a lot. They're just on that high perch. And then that's enclosed. That's enclosed with fencing, and that's really just for the safety of everything else. It's a red tail. Not a whole lot that's gonna get it, but that's the way that I've got my muse set up.
All birds are more tame if you keep them tethered.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think tethering is good during hawking season for sure.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, I free loft my birds during the molt, and then during hawking season, especially imprint goshawks. Like, you gotta just tether them, because otherwise they're coming at you through the door, depending on what you got going on with them. But no, so it sounds like you have a run, like it's like a run line essentially. like a run?
Yeah, kind of, but it's vertical. So it's the other reason that I do it that way is it does give them some level of fitness before I even start my hawking season. Like we'll go out and take game the first time we go out, and it's not like I'm doing jump-ups with my red tail or anything. So it's about, I don't know, it's over my head, so it's over 5 feet. It's over 5 feet, maybe like 6 feet to the high perch, from the ground to the high perch. So if they bait off of the high perch, they have to jump back up, and they learn pretty quick, hey, I don't really feel like doing that because I gotta fly right back up there. So I think it keeps them calmer with that type of setup versus like the runs where you can go back and forth.
And it's horizontal, yeah.
Yeah. So I
so
like
now
it. Can you send me a picture of that on Facebook if you don't mind?
Yeah,
I was just going to say that. Yes, but here's the thing: you're a gear maker. You have a business. There is nobody in the U.S. that I know of, and I've done pretty decent research, and I've talked to a few people harassing me, asking where to get these purchases from, and I don't think anybody in the U.S. makes them. So you got to make them, please. They're the European guys make them, and they're like $1,200 to get one here, and basically it's a ring perch, right? So it's a ring. Where's the camera? Mm-hmm. It's a ring, and then there's a rod that goes into the ground.
I know. Yeah.
And the ring spins.
Yeah.
Right. But you can unscrew it from the spike and add sections until it's like 7 feet high. And instead of a metal ring that pulls on the anklets, it's like a heavy duty like Teflon ring that won't break, and it's like essentially plastic, but it's heavy duty plastic. So when they're sitting on the top and they bait, they go all the way to the ground. And then they have to fly all the way back up to that perch. So the same concept like what you said, but nobody in the U.S. makes them.
Yeah, that's
what I'm talking about?
True. I do. We've actually built one before. So because we couldn't source it easily, it's a similar setup. A couple of variations, but when my hawking buddy flew, a goshawk is what we ended up making it for, and my husband was like, you just take him the picture and you're like, hey, I need this. It needs to do this. And he put it together and welded it up. And those are nice perches. Those are really nice
sweet.
Perches.
And people want them. They're great.
So. And you're right. We couldn't, when we needed that, we couldn't find it. We couldn't source it here.
No. Yeah. And even like before COVID and stuff, you could maybe get one for like $600-700 with the shipping.
Yeah.
But now it's like literally like $1,200. It's like $300-400 for the perch.
I didn't realize they'd gotten so expensive.
That's $600 for the shipping to get from Europe, because it weighs like, it's all the sections and the spikes and it all threads together. And it's awesome because the same thing, like you said, it teaches the bird to kind of like, if you bait, you either stand on the ground all day or you fly all the way back up to that perch.
Yeah.
And they won't get hung up on it. They won't hurt themselves. And then they're getting fit every time they bait.
Yep.
It's perfect for any bird, really.
Yeah.
So please make them.
Yeah, we need you to do all the stuff that we don't have the energy to do, and you do.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, they're great perches.
Yeah.
I've seen it. They seem very common in the UK, right? A lot of people use those.
You see a lot of them, yeah.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense.
Oh, they make so much sense. They're perfect. I was at NAFA's lawyer's house. James, he had one. And then there was a guy at New York has this bird of prey day where like all the falconers from all over go there, and they have tents and food, and they have, I think Lauren McGow was a guest speaker. They have like a reptile guy. Brian Bradley flies his falcons around. There's food. There's like conservationists that give speeches, and it's a lot of fun. And it's called the Bird of Prey Day at Green Chimneys. And there's a couple guys there that had those perches, and you could see firsthand like how well they work. Because they
would be surprised if Tom has some of those.
He has some similar to that. Yeah, Tom has like literally every perch you could think of. But those are great because the top spins, so they can't get tangled. The leash is only 18 inches long, so they can't get tangled on anything. It's perfect.
Yeah, I do like that setup.
The Teflon ring's an interesting idea. I haven't really given that any thought. You could make that pretty easily with like rivets, couldn't you? You just take like little, like Teflon tape, not tape, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
you don't know how they can.
I don't know. I don't know how they construct it, but it's not plastic, like some polymer, like heavy duty,
Yeah.
like carbon fiber, but it weighs nothing. And
Yeah.
they'll never break it or bend it, but it weighs nothing. So that when the bird's standing on the top part, it's not like a metal ring that's like pulling on their legs all day long.
Right. Yeah.
It's
lightweight.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be a bad idea, period, for perches just all around. Something to keep in mind, Heather.
Stowing it away.
So, I would be remiss if we didn't talk about Squirrel Hawking in Appalachia, the book that you wrote.
Yeah, we got to talk about that.
We got to talk about
that's an old book. I cannot believe some of the mistakes that I made. I mean, that was like when I wrote that book, that was my first year that I was actually a general. I had just turned general, but when you read that book, it's like you would just think I was an apprentice, because my first 2 years of my falconry career were very unsuccessful. I took like 5 squirrels in 2 years and didn't know what I was doing. My sponsor was not from here, so he wasn't like familiar with squirrel hawking, and I just didn't have a lot of success. And I'm one of those people that if I'm going to do something, I'm going to be successful with it. So when I turned general, I was like, I have to do something. I'm either going to quit this sport if I can't figure out squirrel hawking, or I'm going to find the help that I need. And I found one of my mentors, Jason Caldwell. He's actually the president of the West Virginia Falconry Club, and he helped me out a lot and really got me going, pointed in the right direction. And I think that's kind of how all of us really improve in the sport. This is one of those sports where you can read all the books that you want, but there's nothing like the help of somebody that's done it for years and getting experience in the field. So that book chronicles like my first year of actually taking game, and all of the mistakes are in there. And that's something that I don't feel like a lot of falconry books don't address. And we don't want to talk about those mistakes. And I think I was just to the point where I'm going to be transparent about this, because people need to understand that you don't just become a falconer and start taking all this game and you never have anything bad happen. There's things that are, first of all, beyond your control. But then there's stuff that you're just going to mess up because you don't know any better. And you have to learn these things through experience. So that's what the book is about. And then my buddy Ray is in there as well. He was flying a red tail. So the book is about both of those red tails and our first season, putting everything together and taking game here in West Virginia.
That's awesome.
It is. It's your first book that you've written?
Yeah. And I'm sure at some point I'll be moved again to write something else. But
you could write Starling Hawking in Appalachia.
Right. Right.
The late taken Sharpie
Right.
in a couple of years after you master that.
Yeah. But yeah, that book, it's so foreign to me now. But that's the thing about a book. It's like, it's a snapshot in time.
I bet you cringe when you think about it.
I do. And there's also like so many great hawking memories in that book. And character building for me. I used to have a really, really bad temper. And falconry has kind of helped me with that. I'm not reformed, but I'm not totally reformed, but it has helped me with that. There's a lot of temper tantrums in that book.
Yeah. Aaron's seen some of my temper tantrums in the field. So embarrassing.
I'm not just saying this because you're here, Heather, but I think you wrote a really good book.
Well, thanks. I don't really consider myself a writer either. That was one of the things when I wrote the book. But I felt the need to like put it out there and let people know that, you're going to make mistakes in this sport. And if you stick with it, if you stay in the sport long enough, bad stuff's going to happen. And that's just.
And I love your transparency that, you recognized you weren't doing falconry the way it should be done, and you set out to do it the right way.
Yeah. Yeah, and taking game consistently, it's what it's all about, and that's something, with the business, our slogan, and that came from a mentor. There's hawkers and there's talkers, you know,
Yeah, you
and
got the sticker on your website.
yeah, yeah. So, and I think that to do the sport justice, you need to practice falconry at a level that challenges you, and that you are consistently taking game with a bird of prey.
Agreed, man. That's great. That's awesome. What inspired you? Like, you kind of already touched on it a little bit, but what inspired you to write the book?
Um, I've
You know what I
always
mean?
I've always kept a journal. That's something that I've always done. My grandmother, who was the deer hunter, she kept a journal every day since like the 1970s. So we've just got like these stacks of her journals left, and it's something that that stuck with me. And then my dad, his kind of version of it, he's a contractor, and when he builds houses, he puts these little notes in houses, like where he was and what he was doing. And this kind of way to capture memories is kind of what inspired me to write the book. It's like, this is kind of my journal, and I want to share it with people instead of just stick it in my little lockbox and not tell anybody about it.
That's cool.
So, yeah.
You know who else keeps a journal every single day since like the 1960s?
Who?
Casey's mom.
Oh, yeah,
My
Teddy
mom.
does. Yeah,
It's all
Teddy
about-
does.
It's all about me. And I'm not even her favorite son, but people would think. I'm not at all. I'm actually like the black sheep. My other brother's the favorite son. I would only imagine what's in her journal about him. He's the favorite. But anyway,
Yeah,
shout out to my mom, Mama Sue. No, but Teddy Moritz keeps a journal.
yeah. And she's an excellent writer, too.
Oh my goodness. And sometimes every now and then she'll like randomly just send me like this whole page of just like one day of hawking. And I'm like,
love getting those emails.
Yes, everybody says to her, Teddy, just write the book. Just hand it over to a writer and say, can you just piece this together for me? It'll be like the bestseller list. Like, she has the craziest stories. Talk about her husband coming to pick her up because she lost her keys, or the dog is down a hole. He's got to bring her a shovel and he doesn't want to. And he shows up and he's not happy about it. It's great. Like, it's just
everybody would read that book. Yeah.
Everybody would read it. It'd be so great. So I think that's cool. I used to keep a journal, and it was like,
her and her husband share an email address.
Yeah, they do.
And it's so funny that it took me the longest time. I was like, maybe her name's not Teddy Moritz. Maybe it's something else. Because I was reading it like Carol Oldman or something like that. And then I was like, wait a second, it's Carl Oldman. His email address, her husband's name.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've tried keeping a journal too. And I documented part of my journey imprinting and hunting with a great horned owl, just because I wanted to keep it, and I don't even know where it ended up, but it was complete dog shit, and it was. It's like I can see like it was handwritten, so it's like one day the pen just trails off the page, and like the sentence doesn't even finish.
I forget stuff. That's like the main reason I like to keep a journal, because I forget so much. I have a horrible memory, but then there's these things too. Part of the reason I keep it is to learn, like to remember these things that I'm like, I'm not going to remember that 2 years from now, and I'm going to make that mistake again if I don't write this down. And I'll go through, and it's the same like with my weight logs. My weight logs are very, very detailed. I keep a way more detailed weight log than a lot of people, but I like to be able to go back and use all of that information, for the next bird and things like that. So it's a way for me to go back and say, I better not do that again.
I always tell myself I'm going to keep a weight log with the temperature and just the general weather, like a snapshot of the weather. I never do it though.
I've got the section for it, but I've gotten pretty bad about not tracking the weather anymore. It's like there's just this empty part on my log.
As with this new goshawk that I'm working with, I stop and think like, damn, how the hell did I do this before? This happened before and I did it, but I just can't remember how I did it. Oh well, I guess I'll screw it up.
Yeah, I was literally just on the phone this afternoon with Aaron Allred, and he has Phoenix. He's going to breed her. But I was I'm like, dude, this bird will not step on my glove. She's like afraid of my glove. And I'm like, do you have any advice? And I'm like, and I remember every single imprint I've ever made, they all don't like the glove. Like they won't step on the glove. And he's like, he's like, I should probably write that down because I don't really remember. It just kind of works out. And I said, yeah, I said, I know it's going to work out, but like, I don't understand. Like the only thing I could think of is do like a mannequin arm with a glove on it. When they start jumping around the nest, and that's the only perch that they get is like a fake arm with a glove on it, and they have to jump up on it, and maybe just like it's just like, and they just brainwash themselves to just jump on it because this bird, like I literally today, 60 days old, she's or 60, 50 something, she comes down, kills the baggie, and then I have to like use the nest bowl to like carry her back to the truck, like fully feathered goshawk, and she's sitting in the nest bowl, and I'm like, this is so annoying.
Just carry that in the field. Heather, can you sell a glove that has a nest box?
like a shoulder mount with like a nest ball on it?
We're like, what is this?
I think I might need it this year. Jeez. Eventually they get it, but it's just like so frustrating because if I've written down what I did year before, I maybe would like cut some time off because now I feel like I'm just kind of doing it from scratch. I'm not the best writer. I don't like to read. I don't like to write. Like all that stuff like bothers me. It just aggravates me. Like I think when I first got my first red tail, I kept a journal like you guys, and I was like, oh, lost 27.5 grams, and it was 37.7 degrees, And then at the end of the season, it was just like caught one squirrel, bird sucked ass, and it's like that's the whole entry for the day.
Yeah.
Like I don't have time for it. I don't know, but I probably should. I'm not as meticulous as some people. I've gotten some messages from people, and they send me screenshots of like their notes in their phone and their iPhone with like, I'm just like, how do you have time for this? Like it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like the amount of detail that like 0.7 grams per hour for 26 hours, and that the bird's gonna eat quail at this time. I'm like, I don't have time. I think it's awesome. Maybe everybody should do that, but if that was like the criteria to be a falconer, I would not.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, part of that, I'm detail oriented anyway, but part of that has gotten, I say, worse since I started flying micros. Like I don't keep the same type of log for a red tail because you don't have to, So, and even now with the micros, I've gotten to where the stuff that I record is the stuff that I need now. And that, if I look back like a few years ago, there's all of this information there that's not helpful to me at all. So you learn to weed out that information and you write down the stuff that's like important. But yeah, my hawking buddy, his red tail log, there's just hardly anything there. Like maybe what he fed that day. If we took game, we have little check marks. I love putting a check mark on a log, but definitely not detailed like I do with the micros.
I think we would be remiss if we didn't mention that there is now an app called the Falconry Journal app.
There is, yeah.
Yeah, we're not endorsed by this product in any way.
So don't download it.
But from what I've heard, it's pretty useful. Although it does track your location and you can add your hawking location. So I kind of feel like this guy is just like playing 3D chess with everybody, just trying to get some killer hawking spots, and like. He has a back-end algorithm that just, they took 6 head of game from this location, and he just like, it goes directly to his phone, and he has like all these
you could put some crazy
throughout the country.
You could put some crazy stuff together if you had access to all that.
Oh yeah.
He does. Well, he says he doesn't, but neither does
Who
Facebook.
is it?
I don't know his name, but he was on the Ugly Dog Fat Bird or the whatever podcast, and he gave like a breakdown. That's a good podcast too. It
is a good podcast. Yeah,
he does a good. It's very informative. You're not going to laugh. It's not going to be fun. But if you want to learn
you're
something,
you're going to be bored to tears, but you might learn something.
You're going to drive off the highway into a guardrail. But if you want to learn something, like the Mullinex episode was great. Like I learned a lot. That was a lot of fun. And it's all scripted. Like it's like they're basically reading off a piece of paper. But if you want to learn something, you'll definitely learn on that podcast. But he had the guy who came up with that app. come on and break it down, and it was pretty interesting. It was definitely interesting. I'm definitely not going to do it because I don't have time to like, brush my teeth basically, because I have a toddler, a newborn, a wife, a small business, and 2 goshawks and one imprint, that I'm making. So I don't have time to do anything. But for somebody who like is like you, detail oriented, it gives you like a perfect like platform to like keep track of everything on one spot.
Yeah, it's super valuable if you're able to, input all of the information. That's what I've heard about it.
And the other cool thing about it, like I said, we're not sponsored or anything like that, but what's cool about it is it will learn kind of like how Facebook learns and all that. It will keep track of like your bird's weight loss, and then based off of the weather and what you fed it, and it will start to predict like when your bird will be, based off of your previous entries, your bird will be at hunting weight at this many hours from this time, which is pretty cool. It's pretty cool. You don't want to, be a real falconer and keep track of stuff, but anyway, it's pretty cool. Have a computer keep track of when your bird's ready to hunt.
What were you saying about technology earlier?
Right. Yeah. Now you got an app going to tell me when I'm going to fly my bird.
I'm just going to lay in bed, plugged into wires, and like my hawk's going to fly around. And every time it catches something, it drips serotonin in my brain or something.
And in my case, it'll just automatically just like squirt like white monster into my mouth. Like when my bird does something wrong, I'm just like, just like put the hole in my bedroom sheetrock. Like when my bird misses the slip, I don't have to leave.
I bet your room when you were a teenager was a mess.
Just come home from a missed slip and just smash my head through like a sheetrock. Listening to Blink 182 the whole time. Whatever.
So Heather, is there? I've had a great time this podcast. I don't think I've laughed quite as much on any of them, to be honest with you. Is there anything that you feel like we didn't touch on that you'd like the opportunity to share?
No, I appreciate you guys having me on, and honestly, I didn't even really know what we were going to talk about. Just figured we'd chat and didn't know what I had to input or anything like that. So I think it's been great. And, keep an eye out on the website and on the Facebook page for new products coming out. And I think the only other thing that I would say is, like our little slogan says, we're falconers too. And if you do see a need, just like, Casey mentioned, the perch, we are always listening. And by we, I mean like me and my other personalities, like, because it's just me. We don't have like any employees.
You and the mouse in your pocket.
So we're always listening, and we want to find things that work for falconers that are in the field. So we're here for that.
It's awesome. We need more of that, because not to throw shade at any other companies, but it seems like as the company grows, I'm not going to say any specific names, but like you go on their website and you look at like some of the products, and it just looks so like cheesy, and they like you could tell they tried to cut as many costs to like make it profitable. And you're like, dude, I don't want to use that. Like, come on, but like all your stuff is like all the good stuff. Like, like all your perches, like your gear, like you got like Ken Hook hoods now, like everything's like good stuff,
quality.
Good stuff you'd want to use, quality stuff.
Quality and functional, And I will mention too, something that we didn't touch on was, our micro scale. That was developed, custom developed here, just out of the need. I used to use a cornstarch, a thing of cornstarch with a piece of turf on top of it, on top of a gram scale, a digital gram scale. And that's how I used to weigh my bird. And I was like, well, the two biggest things to be really successful with micro falconry is you need a good perch and you need a good scale. So our micro scale is fantastic. It's a 3D printed base, and it's heavy enough that when you stick your bird on it, if they would happen to bait, it's not going to fall over. And then the scale that we use, it closes up so I travel with it. Like I take it into the field with me, and it's a really hardy digital scale, and it's accurate within 1/10 of a gram. which blows my mind for digital because I always used that dialogram. When I got started, I was like, dialogram, I'm never going to use a digital scale, but this is a great scale, and I've used it for several birds now, and good product. So check out that digital scale.
I'm looking at it now. It's really cool, actually. Really nice.
Yeah. And it kind of clicks on. It fits that. So the base, it clicks on to the scale itself. So it won't slide around. And that took a lot. That took a lot of design work to do it. And I'm really proud of that scale. It's a nice scale.
You don't want to find out the hard way that your scale from Amazon that was $15.99 is off. Now what I do if I get a scale like from Amazon, I look up on Google how much a quarter weighs, and then I put it on the scale. And if it doesn't weigh exactly what it says on like what it's supposed to weigh, I just throw it in the garbage or I send it back.
Yeah.
But speaking of scales, talking about hearing what falconers say, I've always wanted to know what my bird's weight is when I'm at work. We need no. I'm dead serious because you're like you feed your bird, you go hunting, right? You kill something, you trade off, put the bird in the mew, and then you go to work, and then the whole ride home, you're all buzzed up on Monster Energy drinks, and you're like, okay, well, I hope my bird's on weight when I get home so we can go hawking. Imagine if you could just like there's a scale that hooks up to like whatever, has a screen and then a camera on the screen, or like it goes to an app where you can
like part of the perch, maybe
like part of like whatever the bird's favorite perch is, or like underneath your bow perch, and then it sends a signal. Like someone's got to figure out how to do that so that you can like from a distance from wherever you are, you can know exactly what your bird weighs at all times. Right? That's what I'm saying. That's functional. Because usually it's just a surprise for me. Because like I said, I'm not very detail oriented. When I get home, I'm like, we could probably catch something. Let's go anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It'd be nice to know.
You want to know while you're at work. Yeah.
Yeah. Because now you're like, all right, I'll stay a couple hours. I'll finish this job instead of just like screwing my customer over and leaving early to go fly. I could stay and actually do my job.
Interesting. Well, I'm gonna think on that.
my thought would be like one of those like one of those scales that has like the accordion cable, like at a the dog. You know what I mean? Like at a vet where it's like they stand on it and then it goes up onto the counter and then the vet tech can kind of see it while your dog's standing on it. Something akin to that, but maybe not like $1,000, where like your perch mounts onto it, and then
when you go to the dump and you drive your truck onto
exactly. When I go to the scrapyard with my copper and I drive onto the scale, exactly.
I loved it. You're like, I want this amazing thing that tells me my bird's weight remotely, but not expensive. I don't want it to be expensive. It better be cheap.
No, I mean, listen.
That shouldn't be hard at all.
It's gotta be possible to do that, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who's thought of it. Like your red tail's in the mew, you're at work, and it sits in front of the window every day. Just to put a little pad underneath that scale, where you could see, okay, when the bird's sitting here looking out the window while I'm at work, I can see exactly what she weighs, and we'll be good when we get home, or whatever, or we won't be good, or you know what I mean, something like that. I don't know.
I've heard some zoos have perches that you can walk up to the perch and it's a scale.
That's what we need. We need something like that. Something like that that's feasible for everybody.
You couldn't check. As far as I know, you can't like look at your phone and see the weight, but that way you don't have to go in there and, catch the bird up. It could be a really wild bird that's not man down and you could still tell the weight.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Something like that. Some of these guys, they got to use a BC to get their bird out of their mews. So it'd be nice to not have to,
about like a muse that the walls can close in on it, like the space smaller and smaller, like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, the room, and then you can just get it.
A robot that just casts your bird and changes its anklet. So
I want somebody to shoot like a blow dart with a tranquilizer into their bird and to go in there and catch it.
You ever seen like a Chevy commercial where like the robots are like putting the tires and the rivets together? Just get that, like just cast your bird and just change anklets, new bells, and it's done. You got to make something like that,
but cheap.
But cheap. We need an automated robot that changes anklets and jesses. That's cheap. Come on, cheap. Falconers are cheap. We all know that.
Oh yeah, that's got to be something that you have to contend with, is how cheap and, you know,
Absolutely.
tighter than a
Finding
duck
stuff
butt.
that's cost effective, but functional. It's definitely a balancing act with everything that we've developed so far and stuff that we sell. You know, it's a balancing act.
You gotta just lock the neighbor in the basement with a TIG welder and a plasma cutter, and that'll cut costs. Just tell everybody he went on vacation. He's down there
Right.
just making purchases for food.
That's how Richard Motes gets his tight braided gear.
Listen, I've actually thought about that. I'm like, how is this man making these tight braids with those giant fingers? Like, he definitely has like some sort of like unethical labor. How is he doing it?
It's impressive. It is.
He's got
really
a Harry
is.
Potter house elf that's doing it.
Probably. I don't know. This is like the biggest Richard Motes commercial ever.
This is the Richard Motes episode.
All right. So
Heather, you bring a lot to the table, and I'm really happy to have you as our first female interview. This has been wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, guys. I've had a blast.
Thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Casey, you want to shout out social media?
Shout out social media. Follow us on Sporting Chance Podcasts on Instagram, Facebook. Facebook is like, not too many people are there. So if you're listening to this, go on, just give us a like. And listen, the biggest thing you can do if you're enjoying the podcast and what we're doing is if you give us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to. That'll do us a big favor and go a long way. So do that. We appreciate it.
Spread the word.
Spread the word. And Heather, shout out where everybody can find you and all your, various platforms that people can.
We are on Facebook. That is our biggest platform where we make all of our product announcements. So you can find us on Facebook. We are on Instagram as well. Not as many updates on there, but find us on Facebook, and then the website, www.mountainstatefalconrysupply.com.
Great. And Facebook is the same thing, Mountain State Falconry Supply?
Yep, okay. Same thing.
So go over there, give them a follow, keep up to date. And yeah, I love watching the updates because you're very active on there. So you're always posting stuff, you're showing different things, you're like making videos, you're really, really doing a good job.
Thanks.
And it's great. Yeah.
All right.
What else?
Thanks for coming.